Going to get to this trust factor now, and you heard Larry Kudlow talk about it a little bit. We bring in the former Bush 43 Assistant Secretary of State Robert Charles to talk about it some more. On the day, by the way, I'd be remiss if we didn't say we're remembering former President Bush. I believe you worked in that White House, the Bush 41 White House as well. There'll be more of those remembrances later on today. But thank you, sir, for coming on today. We appreciate it. It's good to see you. The comments from Kudlow that we played at the top of this hour about 5 minutes ago are somewhat telling, because he's obviously trying to put the best spin on what happened over the weekend, but he was very quick to point out, hey, we got to check this. We got to make sure, because, and I'm sure your own experiences, or you'd be able to shed some light from your own experiences, you know, China's said some stuff in the past and hasn't exactly followed up, right?
Yeah, so a quick note on that. Certainly, I draw a little more optimism out of that exchange, and I think the president is transactional. He's always been looking for a move forward, and I think this represents the move forward. You know, I'd like to pause for a moment and just give you a little insight into Bush 41. You know, me personally, I feel that this week is going to really, in many ways, give us a chance to reflect on the goodness of that president, who I think in many ways is the very epitome of selfless service. And you know, there are stories about him that it would be a pleasure to tell that give you a sense of the humility and the sense of mission orientation that made him and Ronald Reagan a very successful president. Just a wonderful example for all of us.
What's the best one you would remember in terms, and maybe it would relate to, you know, kind of the conversation we're having in terms of either foreign policy or trade relations and or negotiations with other countries?
You know, I think that the way President George Herbert Walker Bush dealt with people one-on-one, whether they were the leader of a country or whether they were just someone like me, a staffer in his White House, was always with care and sincerity, and I think it went a long way. Maybe the biggest story I can think of along those lines is when I first got there as a young staffer, we'd be given these speeches that he was going to give, and if they were going to be, of course, that was in the middle of Desert Shield and Desert Storm, right. And if he was going to be on a base somewhere, I would always insert a line about his naval career, because he, you know, he delivered a payload from a burning plane in the Pacific and was shot down, and they never showed up in the speeches, and humility was just profound. And one night I went down and talked with the chief speechwriter. I said, why does he never put these things in the speech? And he said, the bottom line is, after you've gone over 3 or 4 times and President Bush quietly took out a red pen and drew it through the words that were favorable to him, you stopped putting it in. And by the way, this was at the height of the '92 election cycle. Right. He said the bottom line is that this is a president who either knows, either believes that the American people knows he's a war hero, or it's not his right to tell them. And just a man who put people first. And, you know, frankly, whether that's on the international stage or it's in the White House itself, you know the people that care about people, and he truly cared about his people.
No, that is a good story. And specifically with regard to China, if you think both of Bush 41 and or 43, it's interesting to be talking about their presidencies when we're, you know, having this discussion, whether it's going back to when our relations with China were opened up again in the 70s, and the kind of first envoy after that was George Bush, and he obviously spent some time there and knew the Chinese quite well. But then even going back to the time that you worked in his son's administration, George W. Bush's administration, China's admittance to the WTO, normalizing trade relations, 2001, right? How, now that we've gotten towards the end of 2018, specifically do you reflect on that, and to our first point, whether or not we can trust the Chinese in these negotiations?
Well, I think every president leads in the time that they are there to lead. And, you know, what I think President Trump has been saying in many regards is that we needed a correction here, whether it was at the WTO or tariffs or the way that we think about fair trade. What I think is that this is not the end of history today, and it's not going to be the end of history tomorrow. It is the evolution of a more fair and balanced trading relationship, and the president is putting the American people first. His style is very different from George Herbert Walker Bush's style, and it's very different from George W. Bush's style. Right. But, you know, at the end of the day, every president comes to a new world, not the one his predecessor or his predecessor's predecessor had.
It's true.
And he has to deal with that.
I bet, we got to go now, but I was just thinking as you were speaking, the issues, too, haven't changed a whole heck of a lot. I mean, it was George W. Bush and, well, maybe a little bit from George Herbert Walker Bush in the 70s, but I'm sure they were still, even then, they were talking, right, about the similar types of issues with trade?
Yeah, well, you have a communist country that is a big trading partner.
All right, Robert Charles, good to see you as always, and especially
Yes, sir.
today. Thank you for coming on.